3 photographers had the opportunity to photo 3 bands playing at Real Groovy record store in Auckland, New Zealand. This is what it looked like with the main lights on during the sound check. It did get very dark once they turned off the lights. The stage was just illuminated by those neon lights around the walls. Hi, my name's Dave Simpson. I'm a music photographer based in Auckland, New Zealand. I've been photoing live music for a decade and I regularly shoot shows for Getty Images. I was also one of the founders of FromThePit. Now, when I shoot for Getty Images, I often need to edit and upload my images really quickly. So I'm all about having an efficient workflow. So we've all been there. You've come back from a show and you're excited and your memory card and your camera is full of images, but you're exhausted. And that mix of excitement and dread at having to work your way through all those images and create your final set can be overwhelming sometimes. You've got 1,000 images, you've got to narrow it down to 20 for the publication. How do you do that in an efficient way? I've tried various different approaches, and what I'm going to share with you in this video is an approach that works for me, and I want it to be simple and fast too. So if that's you and you benefit from that, then this video is for you, and I hope you enjoy it and pick up some tips along the way. Workflow can be as unique as each individual photographer. We've all got our own different ways and preferences, so as you watch through, there's some of the things might work for you, some might. That's totally fine. Watch, learn, enjoy, ignore, but hopefully there'll be something in here that's useful. Got a rather nice Sony camera here. Thanks to Sony for lending me this. And you arrive back home, and on your memory card you might have 800,000 images, and you've got to narrow those down. So one of the key things is not to copy everything on your memory card onto your computer. Be quite selective in the images that you take from the card into the card reader onto your computer. So there's different ways of doing that. So one is to use your camera itself, and you can do star rating, put the star next to the images that you like as you shoot. If someone's done a jump, brilliant, I'll just look and review that and click on the star button. As soon as the show's over, I can then just import those, and that just can save you massive amount of time. And then you can have an image from when it's been taken to when you upload it within minutes or seconds even. So another way of doing it is use a bit of software on your computer which will read the card and look at what's on the card and allow you to star rate what's on the card, and then you can say, just import the ones which have got the stars. Just, maybe a third of your images will actually make it onto your computer. And that does a couple of things. One is it saves storage space on your computer. But secondly, it means you can concentrate and just edit the ones that you need to. And even of those third that get it onto your computer, I would suggest that it's better to try and narrow down as much as you can before you even start editing. So if you can get that down to say 50, because you know that ultimately you're going to have to deliver 20. So already we've gone from 1,000 down to say 50 or even less than that, just by being quite selective in terms of how we pass things through. If you can avoid importing all your pictures, that's a great place to start. The other thing to remember is when you get back is to pop your battery. If you get your battery straight out of your camera, and pop that straight in the charger, because you never know when you're going to get called out to do another job. So the more you can have everything ready to go, and a charged battery is one of the key things on that. To make sure I don't just grab my camera and run, next time I'm going to leave my doors open. I'm going to leave the battery door open, and if the card's out, I'm going to leave the door here. I'll only close it if I've put the memory card back in and it's in, and that helps me avoid, hopefully, going off to a show and discovering I've not got a battery or I've not got a memory card. So that's what I always do, is leave my doors open if there's something to go in there, and I just leave them sitting on the side. The full set of the images are still on this memory card, and they'll stay on this memory card until I pick the camera up to go out to my next job. Before I head out, I'll check the date and time is still correct on my camera, and only then will I format the memory card. So my pictures are always kind of here. This is my fallback of a backup. And if I've got 2 cards in my camera as well, maybe one shooting JPEG, one shooting RAW, again, I'll not format those until I go out for my next job. And that's part of my pre-heading out, is to format the cards, check the time and date on my camera. That time and date is really important if you're running 2 cameras at the same time, so your pictures will be aligned. We're going to use FastRawViewer as the software to help us with our selections and our importing. I do recommend this piece of software. It's about 50 New Zealand dollars as a one-off purchase. It will really help you both with your importing and your selecting. An alternative is Photo Mechanic, That's quite an expensive piece of software now, but I think you'll find most of the things you'll need will be in FastRawViewer. It's available for Mac, Windows, and it is great. Let's jump into a demo. So this is FastRawViewer, and we're looking at the images on the card. Because we've already star rated 3 of the images on the camera, we can select them in FastRawViewer, look at the 3 of them, and decide if we want to import any of those onto the computer. So looking through, I think there's just one that we want to take through. So that saves us importing the entire card. We can just import one into Lightroom. So now we're in Lightroom, we can do our usual editing. So you might want to do on auto, or try changing some white balance, slightly increasing the brightness, move the black point down. Cropping is a way of avoiding messes around the edge and keeping things nice and clean. Add a bit of noise reduction. And then when you're ready, you can just export. I exported with a preset, so I didn't need to do any settings there. And just like that, we've taken the image from the card, exported directly to the computer, and that image is now ready to send off or post on social media. So the memory card has been popped into the memory card reader. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all of my shots, choose the ones which I think are actually worth exploring a bit more. The ones that they are, I'm going to give a 1-star rating. You can see that by the little numbers which are popping up next to the things down here. I'm just using my arrow keys on my keyboard, and I've set this bit of software up. So I'll just say press the numbers initially just 1. And I'm just doing a sweep through, and I'm just trying to find images which are just going to sort of jump out at me. They've got to be in focus. I'm looking for something with a bit of interest. There's a bit of noise because I'm looking at the raw pictures here, but don't worry about that because we'll get that into Lightroom and deal with it there. So these are quite big raw files. So I was using the Sony Alpha 1 camera, and that produces 50 megapixels images, which are obviously quite big. And so it takes a little bit of time just to read these, but you can see how quick this bit of software, which is called FastRawViewer, is at helping us. Now, the interesting thing is I thought the camera had focused on the singer there, but obviously it had been grabbed by that background. So I think I used some spot focusing when I realized that eye tracking wasn't working quite as well as I hoped. Yes, I'm just going through. I'm probably picking a few more than you might want to at this stage. I have got 710 images on this card. I think there's another card with a few more images as well, so I don't want to go too crazy. Just trying to select when there's a few in a row. I might sort of just try and select the best ones at this stage. A picture of an audience would be good. And I'm looking for pictures of action, something kind of happening, preferably people's faces not being hidden by microphones. Looking at that guy. I think a guy's got the microphone in the eye there, so that's not good. Some sort of slightly different angles behind the scenes there. Trying to grab one of those. Drummers. If you can get them peak drumming, that's always good. Such a great venue, real groovy with all the neon behind, so that's very cool. So one of the things I was trying to do, I'm not sure how well I did that, to get some, thinking about the background when I'm taking the shots. So I like that because it got rock and pop down the bottom, and keep trying to remember to go back to that, but I think I probably didn't later on in the night. But it's good to know where those little like that. So if there's something you think, oh, that's a cool picture actually, I'm going to probably maybe even give that 2 stars so I can sort of jump ahead and edit those ones first. Now, you never quite know what an image is going to look like when it's edited. So really, this is just around selecting the ones which I think are worth having a go with. Definitely not all of these are going to make it in. but I'm giving myself some choices and options. But what I don't want to do is bring everything in. See, there's some here which are going to be probably the ones that I'm going to use, but at this stage I'm just choosing ones which are worth sort of exploring further. Now I accidentally pressed 1 for that. I don't want to press something. I'm going to press 0. Take that one back out. Sometimes it's good to do everything all at once, and then you can kind of go back to the beginning and see where you get to, because by then your brain is sort of caught up and you've got a feel for how many shots across the show you've got for each band. Other times you just want to concentrate on one band and get those done. So it depends how you kind of way of working. I'm obviously struggling with focus a little bit. And that's the last of the images. Right, I'll head back to the beginning and work through the images again. I'm going to play this bit sped up, as you've got the idea by now, but this time I'm being really ruthless with my selections. Only the best shots get rated up to 2 stars. And I was also keeping an eye out for any images that didn't fit the overall feel of the collection. If a shot feels out of place, I won't include it. If I've got a couple of shots that look similar, I'll just pick the absolute best one. My goal is to create a good mix of different looking shots across the entire set. Okay, so we have now narrowed it down to 29. Let's select them all and send them to Lightroom Classic. This is my import dialog for Lightroom. I'm going to copy those to my Mac. I'm going to rename them, and I like to rename my files with the date and hour. If I'd got any standard development settings, I would use those. Because I'm using a different camera, I'm not using any of those today. I've got my metadata, which is my copyright information, and they'll get copied onto my computer and put in a folder with the date in the file name. So I can just click import, and those 29 images should fairly soon appear on my computer. The images are in Lightroom. We've got the 29 images, and it's very tempting to start editing, but I'm going to try and hold off as long as I can, because I think I can narrow down this 29 to a lot smaller. Now, one of the issues was it was very dark in the venue, and so it's actually a little bit tricky to actually sort of see what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my auto sync, and then I'm going to just go into the basic panel and click on auto. Now what this is going to do is it's just going to, this is the software's view of what an image might look like. Of course, that can be very different to what we actually think it should look like. But what it does is it just makes them a little bit brighter. And as I go through, I can now see what I'm doing. This isn't the final edit. This is just for the purpose of being able to see what I'm looking at. Now I've turned sync off as well, because as we move through and make changes, we want to do that on an individual image basis. Right, but what we're going to do first of all is step through the images, just remind ourselves what we've got, and then we're going to go back as much as we can, and I'm already seeing a few images which I think we can probably drop out, which is good news, because it's all about trying to be as efficient and quick as we can be. Now we're in the develop module, so things are taking just a moment to catch up. Cool, all right, let's go to the beginning. So I'm looking at this one and this one. I think we only need one of those. Quite like the smiliness of that one. So because we only want one of those, I'm going to use 3 stars now. So I'm going to bump this up to a 3-star. Not going to give that one a 3-star. Like that one because it's a bit different to the others. It's close enough, close up. That's a moment with the guitarist there. No. There's a couple here. Quite like that singing. But maybe of the 3, that one's quite good because there's some eye contact. He is in the moment there. Yeah, like that one of the bass player, the crowd. Yeah, I think that's kind of okay. We'll have a look at how that one goes. That one I like, smiley bass player. we've got looking behind so we can see a different perspective. Drummer, we need a picture of the drummer. I think of these two, I would go for, I think, that one because it just shows a bit more of the crowd. Yep, go for that one. Guitarists like the rock and pop, but I think we had another one over there. So yeah, I'm going to go for this guy with the phone because he's good. And I'm going to go for that one. And yeah, I think I'm going to go for that one. Those two, probably that one. Which one of those two do I like best? The foot's quite cool, but I like the fact he's throwing his guitar away. So what do you think? Well, obviously you can't answer me back, but I think probably you can drive yourself mad, can't you? I'm going to go for that one. It is a bit like you're stomping on a foot pedal. Like the angle of that one. That does show, yeah, not that one. And I'm going to go for that one, and that one, and that one. Okay, so now if we do 3 stars, let's see what we're up to. Filtering on 3 stars, we've got 19. So getting into the right space now. Let's just see what we've got them all together. Now I'm wondering about this one and this one. So if we press N, you can compare them side by side. Do we want both of those? They're quite similar. I like the on-air bit. Tricky. I'm going to go and go for this one on the right, I think. You might totally disagree with me, and that is fine. So just going through again. That one. Not sure about that one. Might come back to that one. I wonder if we need that one and that one. Looks a bit cluttered, doesn't it? So I might not have that one. Yeah, maybe not that one. So I'm being pretty ruthless now. So I'm down to 15. I'm just wondering whether the one back here, you might just see how that looks in editing. But 15 is not a bad number, is it? Actually, I think let's just see what we've got. Yeah, I think that's kind of okay. All right, so we're finished with our numbers and we're now currently on 3 stars. So let's just select them all again. I'm going to say auto sync in the development setting, in the develop module, auto sync and reset. So this is just going to make them back to their normal darkness. And I'm going to try using this adaptive color, see what that does. Answer is not much, very slowly. Hopefully this will work. And that's actually made things very dark, hasn't it? So I'm just going to boost things up a bit. And because I've got the auto sync on, that's gone across everybody. See what that's done. That's made that one very dark. All right, so what I'm trying to do is just have a sort of a medium jumping off point for everything. So I'm going to say across where we're looking, that seems to sort of make sense. So we'll do that. Back to the develop module. Easy for me to say. Cool. All right, so let's get into it. So the thing I like to do is cropping. Cropping is a great tool because you can get rid of all sorts of bits and bobs you don't need without all the hassle of editing things. So let's just sort of pop that like that. That's good. Right, next. So I might just bring that in a bit like that. Doesn't really need very much. This is a lovely camera we were shooting with. So as a result, it handles this darkness very well. But just amazing. We're shooting in RAW, so that's what came out of the camera. But boom, we can get to that pretty easy in Lightroom. Now, I just want to try and get rid of these bits over on the left-hand side. So just move that down like that. one thing you notice is there's quite a lot of noise in there, and we're going to address that in a bit. Just see that little bit there. I just want to move that down. Could spend ages cloning that out, but instead you can just crop it away and you're done. Let's see what we can do there for this guy. Let's get rid of the bit on there. So again, cropping is my main thing I'm doing here. I am having a bit of a look at the histogram, checking my whites and black points are not going too crazy off the edges. Like that's just take away a bit of the ceiling. There. That, like the on-air bit down there, that's very cool. Real Groovy is known for its neon signs, so it's great to have lots of those in the background. Not that we could avoid it, but it was a good thing. Drummer looks a little bit static, but it is the only drummer shot I've got, so I wish I'd just spent more time, maybe with a slower shutter speed, you know, just trying to get a bit of motion. It does look like it could be just between songs. I like that one because the bass player is very jolly and can just move it forward, so everyone's got a bit of space to look towards the left. Just showing what if it was over here, it might just feel a bit tight, but because over here, if I move my crop, so give more space on the left, we've kind of got room to look into the image, which is cool. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm feeling about this one. I love the fact we've got the real Groovy sign, so that's a good thing. We've got a lot of different light coming in. It's nice that it's a record store and you can see the records. We have got that in some of the other pictures as well. Yeah, I'm sure we might leave that one, but let's keep on going. And then, cool, so we're motoring through this. We're not really doing much in the way of editing, definitely making it brighter. Now you can see this white bit along the bottom. I'm just going to move the bottom up a bit, just so get rid of some of the distraction from the back. It's always important to make noises like whilst you're editing, just so you feel like you're having fun. As everybody knows, going is a fun thing. Right, so just do this one. Now, one thing we haven't done is white balance. So I'm just going to try something. So there's the eyedropper here, which you can also access by pressing the letter W, and just try that in different places and see if we can, what it does to the colors and what we think about that. So that was our shot. I think the answer is probably somewhere in between, so I might just warm it up a little bit. And then I'm going to select all my images down the bottom here, and I'm going to sync. And I'm just going to check none and just sync the white balance across all of them. And let's just see what that looks like. Going through them all. Yeah, that one looks a little bit, the colour's gone a bit weird on that one, I think, so let's move it. We can just change that one a little bit. Also, I've seen that the ceiling, if I can avoid the ceiling there, that's going to be a tidier edge to the image, perhaps. Just going to pop that up a bit like that. No, I'm just going to add a slight vignette. Now, because we're just editing for fun, it doesn't really matter you know, whether we add things, remove things, or what we do. If I'm shooting for, say, Getty images, then it really is very restricted in what I can do because it has to be what's straight out of the camera. But even then, I'm mostly just, even here today, mostly just using this basic editing panel there. I'll just put a bit of vignette, but certainly if I was shooting for Getty, I wouldn't be able to do any vignetting or anything like that. It all has to be pretty much straight out of camera, which is fun. Cool. Could be just a little bit brighter. So we've been through, and I'm sort of comfortable with all these images we've got. They are still very, very noisy and grainy though. So we've got a couple of options. So one thing is we could, again, select everything. They're all shot pretty much the same ISO. We can sync across them all, and then we can go to detail, and then maybe we just shove in a load of noise reduction. Boom. That's all our images there. Now, one thing we didn't do when we brought them in is make sure we've got the right captions. And so let's pop the name of the band here. Just pop that in there. And what that just helps us find these images in future. So yeah, we could just export them all just straight away, like we did with the original. 15 images, popping into a folder. And those images are now in this folder. But you can see they look a little bit soft because of the way I've done the noise reduction. So maybe not as awesome as they could be. So another option is to go in here and choose Enhance. And what Enhance does, it adds some noise reduction and a little bit of sharpening and whatnot, and will create a nice, clean image for us. So the standard settings, I find maybe around about 35 for humans is pretty good. If you go too crazy, if you go too high, then everything can look a little bit plasticky, which is not ideal. Just trying to find a bit of the face. So many megapixels here. And also, when you say create stacks, it basically puts it on a pile with the other image. It does take a bit of time to make these. They can, especially if you've got a slower computer. This is saying 5 minutes. I'll press go and I'll pause the recording just for a minute. So back at Lightroom, the enhanced versions have been made, and you can see they've been stacked with all the individual images, because you can see a number 2. Now, if we go right in close, you can see that there's still a little bit of grain in there, but I think that's kind of, it's good, I think. The amount of grain we've got, I kind of like that. It keeps it looking fairly real. If we expand the stack, you can see this is what it looked like. Just wait for the picture to come in. So that's kind of comparing before and after. So like, you can experiment with those enhanced settings to work out what works for you. I suggest you do it on one image at a time, just because it takes a while to those to be exported. But certainly you can see that I think it gives it more structure and character, and brings out some of the details as well, which is what we want. So the thing we can do now is just go through one more time, check we've got everything that we want, see how, if there's any last minute changes. Now we've got them enhanced. It does give us a little bit more leeway actually in terms of the what we can do with the image. I quite like that one. Sometimes you can push them just a little bit further now that they've been enhanced. You can, maybe for the whole thing, actually, I'm going to select them all. Got auto sync on, so whatever I do for one is going to make a difference to them all. Maybe I'm just going to push the saturation up, because that neon is looking great. So let's just see if that probably makes a bit of a difference. Work our way through. And now, of course, I'm wanting to sort of darken things down just a little bit. Yeah, maybe I could have gone a little bit more than the 35. But yeah, so a good set of images there. So next thing we can do is we can reorder them if we want. The other thing just to mention is when your images come back from enhancing, they are actually DNG files, which is Adobe's version of RAW. And because they're in a stack, they're sort of hidden behind the main images. So when we select them all, we're actually selecting just the front ones, not the back ones there. So that's good. Now, we're going to export, but this time I'm going to use a slightly different export setting. So you can see on my export settings, I've got one, which is what we did before, which is just resize the longest edge to 2048 and pop it in a subfolder of the folder that it's in. And then it adds it back to the catalog so we can see it in here. What I've got is another one, which takes the title of the image and it renames it and adds a 01 to the end. Now, because it's showing me just a 01, that means that for some reason, those names that I put in before, George Villa, has dropped off. So I'm just going to put that again and just see if we still put it on my clipboard. So George Villa, and checking that it's still there across all of them. Right, so let's try again. So we go export, export. Now, because we've got the preset, we didn't need to go through this, but it's actually quite useful just to prove that things are working. I've got a quality, I've got the size to 2048, just do a little bit of screen sharpening. And if you've got a watermark, this is where you'd pop that on there as well. So we hit export and our images are now exported. And here we have the final set of images. We've ended up with 15 shots of George Villa, and I'm really pleased with how they've turned out. I probably would have moved a bit faster if I was editing this myself, but I was intentionally slowing down to explain the process, so hopefully you can practice and get even better too. Massive thanks to Real Groovy for letting us take some shots in their record store, and to George Villa, an amazing band, definitely check them out. Thanks to Bub and Phoebe Rings who played too. Finally, a big thanks to Sony, who not only loaned us their amazing cameras for the shoot, but are also incredibly generous sponsors of the From the Pit music exhibition each year.